First thing, you have a couple of photographs there. The families.
So I got these. Vic is right here. This is in rough shape, and this is Vic up there.
Yeah, the Pioneer Hose Company, and that looks like it could have been at our very first fire station. And these guys mostly, including Zakani, set the scene, did some incredible things, even with their business acumen, to turn the fire department into what it is today. This is the kitchen in our 1942 firehouse. So the kitchen is where all problems of the world are solved by firefighters sitting at the table. So this is what our day room, the strike room, would have looked like a little bit. Have a TV, have a radio. So when we didn't have a call mode, that's what we'd be doing. It's good. These are some books here that has to do with our history. No matter who wrote them. Some of our firefighters have written some. Some of them go way back to 1908 and 1954 that captured some of our history. The communications package here kind of leads us to what we call the poop deck, a nod to the old naval term, communications center, and we still have those today. And then, of course, on this wall is our remembrance wall of members that we've lost in the line of duty or work-related in the Phoenix Fire Department, which is pretty amazing, is to have that few in the city of Phoenix. We have here a display of combination of our two founding bagpipers and pipe makers, some various uniforms, like different years. You can see the Eisenhower jacket there. You can see the newer Honor Guard uniform. And off to our left over here, we have what has become kind of a tribute to our military veterans that have served. This is what used to be the dorm where the firefighters would sleep. Here is the oldest thing of this size that we have in our fire station. This is a locker from the very original Central Station in 1894. And adorning it right here is a picture of the Pioneer Hose team. So there is your ancestor. This is the bay, what regular people call a garage. Big enough to have a fire truck back in the day anyway. Right now, the little fire truck we have was done in the late 80s, early 90s by one of our engineer of engineers, Don Mills. The author there, Christian Zonico, our second female to die in the line of duty. And so her last locker resides with us now. Breathing apparatus from over the years, not all of them, but a good start for a collection. So this lives with us here. It's a 1941 Chevy Hummer. Chevy was getting into the business around World War II to have fire trucks. So like quite a time, the oldest fire truck in the oldest gear you had, and firefighters get together. So the musters that happened back then are still called musters, and we still do them. And this is the oldest fire truck we've been able to keep running and have. So we're happy to have it. This is a 1978 Dodge Plymouth. Back in the day, cities and counties would buy bulk vehicles. It's always economical that way. So this was made as a police package. As you can tell, it looks like a police car. Well, back in the day, PD was tan and white, and they said, yeah, paint yours red. And we would do some other things to it, like, we don't need a shotgun that or anything like that. So this is exactly like what a mechanic would have been helping people. It's not unusual to pull this up to a fire scene and then start trying to draft water out of the ditches of the old Salt River Valley. Thanks for coming by. It's been really great to have you here.
Tim, thank you very much. Very informative. But I wanted to ask, how do you fund all this?
Well, it's protected as being on the National Register of Historic Places, but it doesn't mean there's any funding for it. So the city helps take care of the outside and some of the facility stuff there, but everything else is on us to do fundraising for it. So the Phoenix Fire Foundation is a nonprofit that you can say donate to help us get virtually everything you see inside, the maintenance of the vehicles, and frames, archival paper, everything else goes through them. I mean, we've got the t-shirts inside that sell as donations to accomplish that. And so, and the department helps where they can. So it is run by the department, but we do this on our own time as an extension of the job.
Bienvenidos a Phoenix en un minuto, más o menos. El día de hoy estamos en el hermoso Papago Park, visitando estas hermosas colinas. A minutos del centro, este asombroso parque ofrece increíbles senderos, campos de golf, instalaciones recreativas con impresionantes colinas que suben y bajan por todo el parque, agregando una vista muy única a tu visita. El parque también cuenta con sitios históricos como la tumba del gobernador y el anfiteatro, que solía ser usado para eventos, conciertos y el servicio del amanecer de Pascua. Todos los senderos son bajos y fáciles de completar, haciéndolo un senderismo muy fluido. Adicionalmente, se puede visitar el zoológico de Phoenix y el desierto botánico. Papago Park tiene 3 estanques que ocupan 6 acres del parque, conocidas como Papago Ponds, ideales para ir de pesca. Cuenta con estacionamiento con acceso para silla de ruedas y ramadas, listas para un picnic familiar, junto a uno de los lugares más icónicos, el Hoyo en la Roca, un cerro que ofrece hermosas vistas durante todo el año.
The area near 3rd Street in Buchanan is what is known as the Warehouse District. In the early 1900s, there was a sub-area of the Warehouse District that was primarily occupied by Hispanic businesses, Hispanic residences, churches, restaurants, etc. Historical buildings in Phoenix typically take the last name of the owners. Examples, the Lures Building, the Hurd Building. This building, the Gerardo Building, took the first name of Gerardo Walker. In 1936, he bought this building, created residences on the 2nd floor, and the iconic Sonorense Cafe, which lasted into the 1960s on the ground floor. Right next door is an 1890s building that was the home of Arvisu's El Fresnal grocery store until 1924. And also during that time, it was used as the Mexican Masonic Lodge. And now both buildings are part of the revitalization of the Phoenix Warehouse District.
Well, good morning, and welcome everybody. I'm Chad Makowski. I'm the aviation director here at Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport, America's friendliest airport. And it's my pleasure to have you here with us today as we welcome a brand new airline with amazing new service coming right here to Phoenix Sky Harbor and our community. But first, I'd like to welcome and recognize a couple of special guests who are with us today, people that really helped to make this possible, this day possible. First, joining me is Vice Mayor Deborah Stark. The Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport sits within District 8 of the City of Phoenix, and we're so happy to have District 8 Council Member Keisha Hodge Washington here with us. The Director of the Arizona Office of Tourism, boy, we talk about great partners to help to make routes possible. Lisa Urias is here with us with the AOT. And our last speaker is with Porter Airlines, and I already just gave the secret away. Now that's the airline who is coming. President of Porter Airlines, we're so happy to have
Good morning and welcome to Economic Development and Housing Subcommittee meeting on October 9th, 2024. I'm going to call the meeting to order and turn to our city attorney to explain public comment.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. During citizen comment, members of the public may address the subcommittee for up to 3 minutes on issues of interest or concern to them. The Arizona Open Meeting Law permits the subcommittee members to listen to the comments, but prohibits members from discussing or acting on matters presented. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. And then I will allow our interpreter to introduce themselves right now. Do we have an interpreter here today? Elsie?
Hear me?
Yes. We can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair O'Brien. Good morning. My name is Elsie Duarte. I will be providing Spanish interpretation during today's policy session. I will now take a moment to introduce myself to our Spanish-speaking audience. Buenos días. Bienvenidos a la sesión de políticas. Mi nombre es Elsie Duarte. Estaré sirviéndoles hoy como intérprete a nuestra audiencia de habla hispana. Deseamos pedirles antemano, si va a dar un comentario público, por favor hable despacio, con claridad y evite tener distracciones de fondo. Finalmente, pause después de cada 1 o 2 oraciones para poder interpretar lo que esté diciendo de la manera más completa posible. Gracias. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for being with us this morning. Our first item is a call to the public. Do we have any members of the public to speak? We have no members of the public to speak, so we will move to approval of minutes for September 11th, 2024. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Items 2, 3 are both for information only. Are we, committee members, good with that? Excellent. So item 4 is our naloxone program annual report from the Office of Public Health. And for that, we have with us Yanitza Soto, our interim public health advisor. Welcome. And
thank you.
Thank you for being with us today.
Good morning, Chair and members of the subcommittee. This morning, I'll be sharing information on our annual update for our citywide naloxone program. The Office of Public Health is the youngest and smallest city function, coming up on our 2-year anniversary this month with 3 employees. The Office of Public Health provides guidance and knowledge to city departments and the Phoenix community. Our first major initiative of the office was overseeing the opioid settlement dollars the city will be receiving over the next several years. And through this funding, we implemented the naloxone program and a substance use and overdose dashboard. We are in the final stages of completing our substance use strategic plan, which will outline priority areas over the next 5 years. Over the last several months, the Office of Public Health has been committed to informing city leadership of plans related to the naloxone program. Beginning in March 2023, we presented to the then Community and Cultural Investment Subcommittee. In July of 2023, there was an administrative regulation that became effective for the naloxone program. In August, a citywide launch of the naloxone program occurred. And in May, we also launched our city's first substance use and overdose dashboard. Throughout summer 2024, the Office of Public Health participated in the internal Heat Ready Unified team to inform planning and guidance about the impacts of substance use and heat. And in August, we have celebrated our complete first year of implementation of the naloxone program. Through the past year, the Office of Public Health has also shared quarterly information-only updates with the Economic Development and Housing Subcommittee. Our naloxone program recap: currently participating departments citywide include library, aviation, senior services, municipal court, Office of Homeless Solutions, Parks and Recreation, Community Assistance Program, Family Service Centers, Housing, Human Resources, Neighborhood Services, Head Start, and Heat Response and Mitigation. Naloxone is also commonly known as a brand name Narcan, is a life-saving opioid reversal medication. And the Phoenix citywide naloxone program kits include 2 nasal naloxone sprays, a pair of nitrile gloves, a breathing shield, and instructional educational pamphlets in both English and Spanish. Through this program, we also make educational materials and trainings available, and they have been created and implemented as well. And these training topics include overdose symptoms, polysubstance use, the impact of heat for people who use drugs, and instructions for how to safely and effectively administer naloxone. Next, I will share an overview of substance use data in Phoenix. The Office of Public Health acknowledges that the following data represents loved ones, family members, friends, and neighbors in our Phoenix community and beyond. We communicate this data with respect and compassion for the lives lost and impacted due to substance use. This map illustrates the latest fatality data on overdoses as reported by the Maricopa County Department of Public Health. The central region, which is showing as the darkest color, which encompasses Phoenix, is the highest, with a rate of 30 to 78.5 fatal overdoses per 100,000 people. Rates take into account the size of the population, allowing for a more accurate comparison. As a reminder, fatal overdoses can be caused by one or more substances, which are identified and documented by the county's Office of the Medical Examiner. With the high rates of overdose occurring in Phoenix, particularly compared to those in the other regions of the county, one of the main reasons the Office of Public Health prioritized establishing the naloxone program in our first 2 years of operation can be referred to this data here. Here we can see in detail the number of overdoses per year over the last 5 years for Phoenix relative to the county total. 1,159 lives lost due to overdose occurred in Phoenix in 2023, an increase from the previous year of 2022. This is over 50% of the total overdoses occurring in Maricopa County. Here we communicate suspected overdoses in Phoenix year to date. This data is sourced from the electronic patient care records utilized by Phoenix Fire EMS. Suspected overdoses are classified when naloxone was administered by Phoenix EMS and the patient showed signs of improvement. Some positive news so far is that suspected overdoses for 2024 remain lower year over year when compared to 2023. Overall, there has been 12% fewer suspected overdoses in 2024, and it's possible that naloxone distribution and interventions such as extended cooling center hours over the summer months prevented the surge of suspected overdoses that were present in 2023. Sharing now naloxone program evaluation and outcomes. The Office of Public Health prioritizes evaluation and continuous improvement. Our approach includes a 3-tier evaluation structure, including a staff survey, which is conducted citywide, focus groups with our naloxone coordinators from all participating departments, and data monitoring and surveillance in partnership with our ITS team. Through these efforts, we continue to make changes and improvements to make the program as effective, sustainable, and streamlined as possible. In the program's first year, between 2023 and August 2024, over 10,000 naloxone kits have been distributed citywide. Importance of having this resource across the city can be demonstrated here by this graph. And here we see naloxone kits distributed by council district. We see that Council District 7 here is of highest. Most of note is because our Burton Bar Central Library is one of our main distribution locations. But this also communicates the importance of having this resource citywide. Partnership with Volunteer Phoenix has been instrumental in kit assembly in the first year of having the program available. We have support of local and corporate volunteer groups as well. One of the major indicators of the success of an increasing amount of the naloxone into the community is seeing an increase in naloxone administration prior to EMS arrival. This graph shows the percent of cases where naloxone was administered prior to EMS arrival in the past 2 years. 2024 is the top line and 2023 is the bottom line. This naloxone administration event could have been by a bystander, police officer, or anyone else there at the time the individual was experiencing an overdose. As you can see, there has been an increase in use prior to EMS arrival, which is a very promising indicator. We hope to continue to see this number rise as we make naloxone and naloxone education more readily available to staff in the community. While these percentages are still low, lower than what we'd like to see, we would like to highlight that since the naloxone program's inception, we have seen a 39% increase in naloxone use prior to EMS arrival. Over the last year, the Office of Public Health has become a resource, and through that, we have received many positive stories citywide. Here, I'd like to highlight 3. In November 2023, a city employee completed training and received a kit from the HR Center, shared that their loved one was currently battling cancer and had many prescription opioids. The employee was grateful to have access to this training and a naloxone kit. The Office of Public Health partnered with the Heat Ready Unified team this summer to have naloxone kits available at all extended cooling center spaces. This partnership was vital to getting kits to those most in need, especially considering the impact of polysubstance use and heat that we see in Phoenix summers. And finally, sharing a direct quote as shared by Phoenix Public Library. Throughout its 125 plus years, Phoenix Public Library has been a trusted source for our community members, offering library visitors access to critical information and resources, including public health related subjects. Phoenix Public Library has a strong helper mentality and customarily is one of the forefront of identifying and adapting library offerings in response to the needs of the community. Library visitors know they can find information and get connected with resources they can integrate into their personal lives and circumstances. Making naloxone available at Phoenix Public Library locations aligns with the mission of a public library, and we're grateful that our partnership with the Office of Public Health has allowed those in need to have a life-saving resource in the moment they've needed it most. In summary, an overview of today's presentation. In year 1, over 10,000 naloxone kits have been distributed citywide. Phoenix makes up over 50% of the fatal overdoses in Maricopa County. There has been 12% fewer suspected opioid overdoses in 2024 so far as compared to 2023. Partnership with Volunteer Phoenix has been instrumental in kit assembly. And since the naloxone's program's inception, there has been a 39% increase in naloxone use prior to EMS arrival. Next, we look forward to naloxone program year 2. As we enter year 2, we look forward to updating the citywide naloxone training to include information on stimulant use, the impact of heat and substance use, and stigma. We're working on new and innovative ways to put data to action by identifying key areas in the community to serve as future distribution sites to bring this life-saving medication right to people where they need it most. And we are continuing to explore ways to make the program better and farther reaching, including engaging with new partners and community members in our naloxone kit packing activities and on-site trainings. That concludes my presentation today, and look forward to taking questions at this time.
Questions? Councilwoman Hodge-Washington.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Congratulations on hitting the 1-year mark. We know that opioid addiction transcends all generations, all economic status, all races, so it's truly a need. I was very happy to see that we have seen 12% fewer suspected opioid overdoses. I know those represents lives that I think are saved, and our community members deserve an opportunity, so thank you for doing what you do. I just had one question regarding slide number 11 or 12. I think it's 11. There are 2 11s. The one with the bar chart.
Yes, by council district?
Yes.
Okay.
You indicated that unknowns refer to areas that cover multiple council districts or where council districts could not be specified. Mm-hmm. I think going forward, it might be helpful if you can identify where they could not be identified separately from multiple council districts. Because I'm curious to see how much of our kits are going to areas that we just simply aren't tracking. Not in a negative way, but I just think it'd be helpful to be able to keep track of that.
Okay, thank you for highlighting that.
Thank you.
I'm going to piggyback off that question or comment. what defines, I mean, I get what unknown means, but how do we not know where it was distributed from?
We are reporting through our naloxone coordinators that are participating departments. They can report how many naloxone kits were distributed and where they were distributed from, and that's where we get reported zip codes to then get some council district information.
Okay, so how do they report unknown? If they have to report zip codes where they're distributing it, how do you not know what zip code?
Yeah, it could be that it's not included in a monthly report, for example, and so that could be an option that we look into in our second year of how we can clean that data more closely as well to ensure that there are no unknowns as much as we can help it, to ensure that we're capturing as accurate council district information as possible.
I think that would be important for us to try to reduce that number to understand where our partners, I understand you can't control that, but our partners should know, where they were when they distributed them, and that it is important for us to know so we can see where this is happening. On slide 13, which is the administration prior to EMS.
Yes.
So you talk about a 39% increase in use prior to EMS. How do you arrive at that?
Yeah, so that is reported directly from our electronic patient care record from Phoenix Fire. And on scene, EMS is reporting whether or not someone has received Narcan prior to their arrival. And from that data set is where we refer to anything administered prior to their arrival.
Okay, I guess I understand that part. But what's the formula used to get to 39%?
Yeah, we compare then to the previous year. So both since Phoenix Fire is recently on electronic patient care record and we only have our, 1 year of our naloxone program, we have these 2 years comparative. So from there is where we're able to see how many events were occurring prior to their arrival.
Okay, and you said we're not where the goal. What is the goal that you'd like to achieve?
Of the naloxone program, in this example, would be to continue seeing an increase in Narcan administered prior to EMS arrival. A goal of the naloxone program overall could also be an indicator of less suspected overdoses happening across our city, as well as continuing to share additional information about the benefits of Narcan and naloxone to community and ensuring that there's additional substance use information across the city.
Okay, I think that for me, for 2025, it would be great if we could have, we want to have a 20% or 40%, some hard numbers to which we can compare against to see if we're achieving that. And if there's events, that would be helpful for me for moving forward. Okay. And I know you talked about increasing the number of, decreasing our suspected overdoses with this. And so if we have a goal there, if it was 12%, which is a great number to achieve and year over year so far, because we're not all the way through, right? So if it's 15% next year or 20%, if we could maybe evaluate what those numbers could be to achieve. Appreciate all the hard work that you and the organizations that are working with you to do. Did you have any comments or? Okay, great. Thank you so much for being with us today. Our next item for discussion and possible action is consideration of a possible shopping cart restrictive device ordinance, and we have Spencer Self from Neighborhood Services. And are you by yourself, sir? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Fabulous. We're excited to have you.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. I'm here to present information about a possible shopping cart restrictive device ordinance, as the chairwoman mentioned. I'd like to start by providing some background on our abandoned shopping cart retrieval program. Established in 2007, the program was created to to address increasing resident concerns regarding hazards to pedestrians, motorists, and visual blight in neighborhoods. It was designed to be cost recovery through a per cart fee billed to retailers and to encourage retailers to implement measures to minimize carts left in neighborhoods. At that time, few retailers had their own contracted services in place to retrieve their carts. However, that has changed, and now somewhere between 75 to 90% of the carts our program returns are from retailers who do. Unfortunately, we've seen an increase in the number of abandoned shopping carts reported and retrieved, nearly tripling from around 3,000 in fiscal year 2018-19 to more than 9,000 in fiscal year 21-22, before coming down a bit over the last 2 years. As you can see, carts are spread out across the city, generally everywhere where grocery and retail stores exist. We do see a high concentration along the 19th and 27th Avenue corridors, where we're proactive in the community safety plan areas. And there are fewer in Central City South, where we have fewer traditional grocery store offerings. Last year, we collected carts from over 67 retailers, but nearly half, more than 3,800 carts, come from Walmart and Fry's. After the two largest, there's a significant drop to the third, which is Target, and then we have 10 retailers that fall between the 2 and 5% range. Finally, we have 54 retailers that fall into the other category, which includes retailers we collected fewer than 100 carts, including Lowe's, Albertsons, Walgreens, as well as many who we've collected fewer than 5 carts, such as Nordstrom Rack, Bookman's, Ace Hardware, and Five Below. Recognizing the significantly increasing number of carts added community frustration, we were asked to research potential new codes. We started by looking at what other cities are doing, and Madam Chair, I want to thank you and your team, as well as our law department, for helping us collect this information. We looked at 5 large U.S. cities and 11 Arizona cities and towns. 11 of the cities did not have an ordinance in place holding retailers accountable, although several of the cities outside of Arizona do have ordinances prohibiting the removal or possession of a removed shopping cart from the premises of a retail establishment. In Arizona, we have a statewide statute, so individual cities do not. Of the 5 cities with an ordinance, 1, Tucson, charged the retailer for carts found outside the premises, similar to our charge for carts returned. And 4 cities had locking mechanism requirements, although I will note they did allow for having a shopping cart retrieval contract as an alternative option. From our research, Phoenix really is a leader, as we've established all the requirements, with the exception of locking mechanisms. So let's talk about those locking mechanisms. We have a short video from the Science Channel on YouTube that I'd like to play that does a great job explaining how the most common of these devices work. I'm going to warn you, this is likely the most intense video about shopping carts that you've seen today. It has computer animation, sound effects, everything. So here we go.
As a cart crosses the shop perimeter, a cable hidden underground wirelessly activates a motor in the wheel. Smaller than a matchbox, it cranks a set of gears that force out special teeth, which lock the outer wheel in place. The teeth prevent the wheel from turning and stop thieves in their tracks.
All right, now let's take a look at some carts with these devices that we found around the city. Here you can see a local Smart & Final that has a locking wheel on the front left, one of the most typical applications that we've seen. This is another one outside of a Fry's store, very similar to the first, but what's interesting about this cart is not the locking mechanism itself, but this addition on the rear. One of the challenges of locking wheel mechanisms is the device is triggered when it moves over the perimeter cable, as we saw in the video. If the locking wheel is lifted high enough, it will not lock. This welded collar over the rear wheel prevents the car from being tilted to prevent that work around. This cart has a front wheel and the anti-tilt bar at the rear, but if you look closely, you can also see that the rear wheel on the far side is also a locking wheel. There are other types of restrictive devices as well. This one uses something more akin to brakes rather than gear teeth to lock. I also believe there are some that use GPS to restrict the location rather than the cable embedded underground, although I've heard that those require more maintenance due to battery usage. Now that we've covered what restrictive devices look like and how they work, I wanted to come back to the data about the carts that we currently collect. Unfortunately, we don't currently collect data from our cart retrieval vendor on what portion of the carts that we retrieve have locking wheel mechanisms already. But we do know that for our two largest vendors, Walmart uses locking wheels at 7 of their 15 locations, and Fry's uses them at 27 of their 28 stores, although I would point out that my team noted at least 2 of those locations where they had a mixture of carts, so some with locking wheel mechanisms, some without. And unfortunately, we don't have specific data about whether or not the locking wheel systems at those sites are maintained or kept functional at the stores. So what would an ordinance from the City of Phoenix look like? What we would suggest is requiring retailers to have restrictive devices such as those we've seen. They would then register with the city, where they would provide certification that they are compliant with the restrictive device requirement for all carts, a description of the restrictive device and how it prevents the carts from being removed from the retailer's premises, the number of shopping carts they provide at each location, which may be used in determining appropriate fines if we want higher fines for larger retailers, and any cart retrieval contracts that they have in place, which will help with our abandoned shopping cart retrieval program. And of course, they would need to update their registration annually so that we have the most up-to-date information. With that, retailers would be subject to education and enforcement if a retail location is not registered, if they do not have a restrictive device, or if their devices are not properly operating, or if they have substantially more carts than identified in their registry. So I know that was a lot of information about shopping carts. We threw a lot of data, pictures, an intense video with special effects, and a new ordinance framework your way. I think now is a good time to remind you that while this item is agendized for discussion and possible action, it does not necessarily require any action today. In fact, we did not include a staff proposed action in this report because we wanted to bring you this information, and we're seeking feedback and direction on what you believe our next steps should be. Relative to this potential new ordinance and overall approach to addressing abandoned shopping carts in Phoenix neighborhoods. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have or take any direction you'd like to provide.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. You had mentioned several cities that have the required locking mechanism, but they had the option of opting out, were you saying? If they had a cart retrieval program, or do they have to have both?
Madam Chair, Vice Mayor, yes, for those cities that have that type of ordinance, they allow the option. So at the retailer's discretion, they can either have the locking wheel mechanism or have the cart retrieval contract on their own.
And have you been able to speak to some of those cities to see how successful that's been, having the opt-out?
We have spoken to some of those cities. By and large, they have not had a significant enforcement arm relative to those actions as of yet. I certainly would think within the city of Phoenix, our situation as the largest city and with what we see, it may be a little bit different and difficult to compare apples to apples.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman.
Thank you for the presentation as well. One of the questions that I had is a little bit more about the retrieval contracts. I think it'd be helpful to understand what are the requirements from the retrieval contract, what are the timeframes for removal, because I think that's one of the things that would help make a decision here.
Absolutely, and at this time, we do not have copies of what the contracts look like between the retailers and their contracted cart retrieval. I know for ours, we certainly have expectations relative to the time frame for the turnaround of picking them up, especially when we receive a complaint. But I don't know, I can't speak with authority on whether or not they have something like that in their contract.
And what is our turnaround expectations for
Within 48 hours of submitting that request, and we do look at that regularly, and our vendor is within that compliance. In fact, most carts are retrieved within 24 hours.
Well, I'll give my opinion on what I think direction should be. I think at a minimum, if we move forward with the restriction, we do have the alternative. If they have a cart retrieval contract, it should be equivalent to what we currently have as a city, our requirement of 48 hours for expectations. And my other question, I apologize, have we had any conversation with industry regarding a proposal or proposed ordinance?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman, at this point, we have not. We wanted to come get your take on what we've laid out, and then if so directed, we would certainly be open to engaging with the community and with our retailers on the idea.
Okay. And the retailers that we've seen that have use restricted devices on their shopping carts, we don't have any data or anything that suggests the efficacy of those devices, correct?
Right. At this time, we don't have that specific information. We do know that as mentioned before, a significant number of Fry's have some sort of device, and some a little less than half of the Walmarts. But we don't have detail specifically about whether or not they are effective.
And do we have any data that shows what types of restricted devices they use on their shopping carts, or they're all pretty much using the same, I guess, mechanism as shown in probably slide number 10?
Yeah, so the vast majority are the typical ones that we showed on most of our slides. We do know there are others that have other types of restrictive devices, maybe that don't prohibit the removal of the carts from the premises, but from the actual store itself. So you can think of some of those stores where they have the pole mounted on the shopping cart that makes it difficult to have it exit the store altogether. Those are for generally the types of establishments where you don't need the cart to transport the items to the vehicle.
Okay. And then my only other suggestion would be as we draft any ordinance, it'd be helpful to have some input from or feedback or conversation with the industry to make sure that we are not providing a limitation or a regulation that would unduly be burdensome. And I think we need to identify, well, possibly how we can coordinate with Office of Homeless Solutions on this, because many times the shopping carts that we are possibly being called to retrieve are being used by the unsheltered to navigate their belongings. So I think there's a couple of additional players. It's not just the shopping cart. So I would definitely ask that we make some additional considerations and conversations as we move forward with this. Thank you, Chair.
Of course, Councilwoman. You mentioned that some of the other cities have ordinances that not only make it illegal for them to, be taken off property, but to be in possession of them. Do we have that ordinance in Phoenix already?
So we have an Arizona revised statute that speaks to that statewide. There are no cities in Arizona that have their own separate ordinance relative to that. And of course, we do have laws related to theft as well.
Okay, so state statute would forbid someone to be in possession of a shopping cart that doesn't belong to them.
It does. However, I will note there is some nuance in terms of that particular regulation that has specific requirements for the carts that fall under that requirement. And many of the carts that we see and that we collect do not meet that definition.
Okay, then, I certainly would be curious about that aspect of it as well at the city level, if that would be helpful in enforcement. I am curious and a little bit reticent to allow our retailers to opt out, given that Fry's has, and we don't know if they're working though, 27 of their 28 stores, they say they have locking mechanisms, yet in our collection, they're 24% of the collection. So to Councilwoman Hodge Washington's point, we do need to have stakeholder meetings and get their feedback. But if they have data, they need to share all their data, not just the data they want to share. We need to see the full picture, and we need to know what is operational, what's not, where it's working. And I also don't want to see us have, to burden our businesses. It is hard for especially our smaller businesses. So, could you look at some kind of mechanism or process where they could, as they expand, be incorporated in, or if there are certain levels. Do you know what I'm trying to say, Spencer?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. We certainly could look at ordinances that both have considerations for smaller retailers as well as potential triggers for if they're developing and expanding their footprint, maybe over a certain size.
Right, using square footage. So if you're at a certain square footage, you have to follow the ordinance, or you're grandfathered in for a little bit until you expand. So some of that kind of, looking at that kind of options. Okay. Council or Vice Mayor?
Yeah, and if you could also ask, I think when you were briefing me, I told you that my Target used to have the locking mechanism, and then they stopped using it about 3 years ago, and I'm kind of curious as to why they did that. So if you could get some feedback on that as well, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
And since we're down this path, because I know that I have used the app to report shopping carts. And then what I get back is that, that's private property. And private property might mean, in this particular case, this one incident I'm thinking of, I believe it was county property, and it was a wash. So I would also like to see us look at MOUs with our other government agencies that would allow, I can't imagine they want an abandoned shopping cart in their wash where water is supposed to run when we have too much rain. So I think that is another step that would allow our retrieval company to take them off of properties. And quite frankly, it might be too tedious right now, but there might be private businesses, like large ones, Honeywell. I'm trying to think of some other big ones where they would go, okay, you can take that shopping cart off the corner because if it has fries, I'm pretty sure Honeywell's not using shopping carts in their manufacturing process. So those are things I would also like us to look at to tackle this from as many ways as possible. I know because if you go back to that map that you included, my district sees a lot of this, especially like you said on that 19th and 27th Avenue, 35th Avenue corridor. So it's important that we look at how do we maintain quality of life for all of our citizens. Thank you. Anything else? Wonderful. Thank you so much, Spencer. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Oh, before you go, I apologize. We had a speaker. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm always so bad at this. Do we have Lisa Bednar? Trish Hart, you're also on the list. Okay. I apologize. Caught myself.
Council members, for the record, my name is Trish Hart, and I'm here today representing the Arizona Food Marketing Alliance. We are a trade association representing retail grocers and food suppliers throughout the state. And we have been working with the City of Phoenix since the inception of the shopping cart ordinance I believe in 2007. This is something that our members are very concerned about and very committed to making sure that we work closely with the City of Phoenix to make sure that the carts are retrieved. I know that Councilwoman Stark has been to several of our stores over the years, and this is something that's extremely important to us. We ask that as you move forward on any discussion, we certainly want to be a part of those discussions. We want to make sure that we provide you any information that you need. This is something that we do have numbers on the number of sweeps we do per store, things like that. And the way that we typically handle the shopping cart retrieval is depending upon the need. So when store may only get pickups maybe once a week because that's all they need. Some have, 3 and 4 times per week. So it just depends upon the store and what the need is on how those cart retrieval services are utilized. But several of our stores utilize cart retrieval services. We found them to be find it to be very successful and very helpful. And we just want to continue the dialogue with the city on this, and we appreciate the opportunity to be part of that process and look forward to working with you on a positive resolution to this issue. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Trish. You said Food Mart?
Arizona Food Marketing Alliance.
Okay, and so you are not on the list of here, so clearly,
the Arizona Food Marketing Alliance is the trade association that represents all of us.
Got it. Okay, so you represent organizations who are doing this, and so you would have data for some of those separate entities.
If there are members.
If they're your members. Okay. Well, we love having our stakeholders around the table and working together to find productive solutions that work in the best interest of all parties. So thank you for coming today, and thank you for being willing to help us out.
It's our pleasure, and thank you for taking the time to listen.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it.
Great. And do we have Lisa with us? Okay, going once, going twice. Oh, nope, there she is. Okay.
My name's Lisa Bednar. I'm the president of the Arizona Food Marketing Alliance. So we just wanted to reaffirm that anything that we can do with the help of our members to address this issue, we would love to be at the table in a stakeholder capacity to make sure that we're working out a solution that works out for everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming down today and spending time with us. We look forward to working with you. All right. Okay, I think we don't have any other speakers. Nope. Okay. Thank you so much, Spencer. Now we can go to item 6, which is the 2024 to 2028 Local Workforce Development Area Plan. And for this item, we will have Eric Johnson, our Assistant Community and Economic Development Director, Lisetta Hogans, also with Economic Development, and Hayden Maynard, correct? Okay. Awesome. Thank you all for being with us today.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. We appreciate this opportunity to give you an overview of our upcoming local workforce development area plan. We're required to update this plan every 4 years. And with me today, Lisetta and Hayden will walk you through our most recent updates and the policies behind it.
Thank you, Eric. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Just to kick us off, I'm going to go over a little background information about the local plan. So our local plan is the responsibility of a collaboration actually between our Phoenix Business and Workforce Development Board and the City of Phoenix. It is established by federal law that we do have a local plan, and as Eric shared, this plan is a 4-year plan, and it's been established by the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act law. For our local plan, we like to gather a lot of stakeholders in our community, and that's comprised of businesses, workforce partners, as well as training provider stakeholders. Our focus in our local plan is really to address our workforce and economic development needs in the city of Phoenix, specifically. So this document, while it is compliance and it is a mandated document that we're supposed to have, and it's required by WIOA in the state of Arizona's Workforce Arizona Council, which is the state workforce board. And as we shared, it's a 4-year plan. We do update this plan every 2 years to ensure that we have the most up-to-date labor market information. So even though it is something that is required, we like to take our proactive approach to addressing our workforce challenges in Phoenix. And we do that by ensuring that we're collaborating with our board strategic plan as well as our community and economic development strategic plan, which many of you are very familiar with. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Hayden Maynard, who's going to go over the remaining of our PowerPoint presentation, specifically around the local plan development, its implementation, and public comment opportunities. Hayden?
Thank you, Lisetta. Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and members of the subcommittee. I'm here to cover the development of our local plan for this 2024-28 local plan. In the plan, there's an identification of the specific needs in the city of Phoenix, our economic and our workforce development needs through an in-depth analysis of the economic conditions, as well as working with our stakeholders to get their feedback on the workforce needs and challenges that they're facing. There is an incorporation, as Lisetta said, of the Arizona State Plan and our Community and Economic Development Strategic Plan, as well as the Phoenix Business and Workforce Development Board Strategic Plan, to ensure that all of our workforce activities are coordinated and cohesive to work best for our job seekers and our employers in the city of Phoenix. And there's a collaboration amongst our stakeholders. Our stakeholders include our board members, our employers, our training providers, and our workforce service providers in the city of Phoenix. And through collaboration, we can ensure that we are engaging in strategies that will ensure a skilled workforce in the city of Phoenix. How will we use this local plan? This local plan, we've developed strategies that meet those needs that we identified through our economic analysis and our collaboration with our stakeholders. For instance, the Phoenix Business and Workforce Development Board knows that we need workforce services to remain relevant and known by our job seekers and our employers in the city of Phoenix. And there's a strategies in the local plan that emphasize collaboration with our stakeholders so that we can meet the employer needs and ensure a robust workforce in the city of Phoenix. Performance goals are included in the local plan. These plans will allow our board to gauge the effectiveness of our workforce services. One of the metrics that is in the plan is that 70% of our job seeker participants in the Title 1B services will get a industry recognized credential. This ensures that our workforce is highly skilled and ready to meet the challenges of the city of Phoenix economy. And lastly, there's an outline of the City of Phoenix Workforce Services System. And this outline shows how our partners work together and how we will meet the diverse needs of our job seekers and our employers in the city. Public comment is an important component of our local plan. The draft local plan was available on the Arizona at Work website from September 23rd through October 3rd. This is the opportunity for our community members and stakeholders to review the plan and share their comments. We reached out to residents and our stakeholders through a variety of methods, including community meetings. We had email campaigns and social media campaigns as well to ensure that they knew where to find the plan and how to comment. All public comments will be noted in the final draft of the local plan. I'll now share a timeline for the local plan. On September 25th, the Phoenix Business and Workforce Development Board approved sending a draft of this plan to the Arizona Office of Economic Opportunity on behalf of the Workforce Arizona Council. They will review the plan and ensure that it meets the requirements in WIOA. On October 3rd, the draft was submitted to OEO for review. Pending your approval, your recommendation today to council, this plan will be considered by the City Council on October 30th. Tomorrow, the Phoenix Business and Workforce Development Board is going to be considering the final draft being submitted to the Office of Economic Opportunity. And then on November 2nd, the local plan will be due to the OEO, and the plan will go into effect on January 1st, 2025. And with that, I will hand back to Eric.
Thank you, Hayden and Lisetta. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions. And our recommendation is to obviously move this plan forward for submittal.
Vice Mayor. Thank you. Maybe just for the audience, you could give an example of who our diverse stakeholders are.
Happy to do that, Madam Vice Mayor. Our variety of stakeholders include education partners, our businesses, not only a part of the Phoenix Business Workforce Development Board, but actually in the city of Phoenix that we work with, as well as our residents. We really like to engage with our residents specifically because this is really an opportunity to get their input and feedback on how they would like to see workforce services, or if they are actually accessing workforce services at one of our Arizona Work Job Centers. So we really involve the entire community as much as we can.
I appreciate that, and I just want to make sure as part of that we reach out to trades. I know not everyone goes to college, and I know we as a city could really beef up the trades just given how we're growing. I know it's been a challenge out at the semiconductor of trying to find people to work, so hopefully you've reached out. It sounds like you have. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman? Actually, Vice Mayor took many of my comments regarding the diversification of our workforce, especially in the trades. And my comment was more so I actually took a glimpse at the plan, and I was interested in the performance metrics and just if there's any indication that you can give us as to whether or not we met and exceeded the performance measures from our last plan. Mm-hmm. So if we have the momentum or the anticipation that we will exceed it in the 2024-2028 plan, 2025-2020. Yeah, 2024-2028 plan, sorry.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman, yes, we have met or exceeded all of our performance metrics from the previous plan. We plan to continue on that momentum moving forward. And to address the question around apprenticeships and trades, absolutely. They're also members of our board, and we engage with them heavily as we continue to build out apprenticeship programs for the semiconductor industry, as well as electricians and all the other trade industries.
And one more question: when does public comment actually expire or end on the plan?
And I'll let Hayden answer that question.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, member of the subcommittee. The public comment was from September 23rd through October 3rd, so it has concluded and was included in the draft that was submitted to the Office of Economic Opportunity.
And I did read them. There were 5 comments. One of them covered the area that Vice Mayor mentioned about including the trades as well as veterans and disabilities. And childcare, the impact of childcare and transportation in these roles. And I was just wondering, do we feel like we've addressed all of the public comments that were raised thus far, or do we anticipate any further revision?
I will pass that back to Lisa.
Thank you. Pass the mic.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Councilwoman. So the intent of public comment is to gather that information from the community so that we can revisit our local plan. It is being reviewed by the Office of Economic Opportunity for their input as well. So we do plan to take all of that input into consideration before we finalize the local plan and have it approved by council.
Thank you so much for that.
Well, the good news about going last is everybody else has already asked everything and commented on everything. So what I'm going to say is if there are no more questions or comments, is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to, and a second to approve. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much for your presentation today and all the work you are doing to make sure that our employers have excellent workers. So appreciate that very much. Do we have any other, we have no more nobody here to speak from the public. Are there any requests for future agenda items?
I did have one clarification. I know we have future agenda items, includes a legal representation for eviction. Is there maybe we can have some kind of determination of when that will go?
Yes, I will work on getting that on the agenda a little sooner rather than later if we can. We have some very packed agendas coming.
Yes, thank you.
And I imagine that will be a lengthy conversation, but we will work on that. Anything, Vice Mayor? Okay, well then with that, I'm happy to say that we are adjourned and everybody has a little extra time this morning. Have a great Wednesday.
That way. So this was made as a police package, as you can tell. It looks like a police car. Well, back in the day, PD was tan and white.